grab some popcorn, or better yet, some jelly beans. Actor Dennis Quaid is joining me to talk about portraying the 40th President of the United States in the new movie, Reagan.
He was vice president of the Screen Actors Guild and then president of the Screen Actors Guild. And that was his entry into politics, for real, you know, and it came off of a failure. Really, it's, you know, kind of like finding God's purpose for us is a windy road.
This is CIA. I'm David Sams, and I have somebody really just remarkable on the show today, one of my very favorites. He's been dubbed by The Guardian as one of the best actors to have never received an Academy Award nomination. And I'm talking about Dennis Quaid. He's been on the podcast before, but this time it's a very special project. And I expect this film to be known as one of his best. Well, you know him from so many great movies. There's, of course, The Big Easy, Parent Trap, The Rookie, and some big faith film, as well as I Can Only Imagine, American Underdog, and one of my personal favorites, The Hill. Now he's taking on the role of playing one of the most iconic presidents in American history. I'm talking about Ronald Reagan. In the new film, Reagan. And this film is quite remarkable. It comes out August the 30th. I've seen it a couple of times, and I love it. It really is quite a picture. It's a cinematic journey. It's not really a film of politics. It's a film of overcoming the odds and going for your dreams despite your upbringing. You know, Reagan had a very interesting childhood, and his father was an alcoholic. His mother was a Bible believing great Midwestern mom, and it's just amazing how this small town boy just made it. But I'll tell you, the thing that really got to me was the love story. I mean, what a love story it was. And I know we've heard so much about Nancy and Ronald Reagan, but this really is something very special. So it comes from a great producer and a great team. They've been working on this for several years. It has taken a lot to get through this. They had to shut down during COVID, then start back up and shut down. And I mean, this thing has gone on for like 4 or 5 years. And I want to tell you, when I saw this movie, you know, in about 5 minutes, I thought Dennis Quaid was Reagan. He is that good. So we're going to go to the interview I just did a couple of days ago, and you will not believe where he's doing this interview from. I mean, talking about doing something in character. We're going to go to the Reagan Ranch itself, where I conducted the interview with my friend Dennis Quaid. So let's get to it.
Welcome to your life.
There's nothing a retired governor can do, but a president, now he can do a thing or two.
Everybody wants to rule the world.
I will be frank with you that as a citizen, I would not like to see any political party outlawed on the basis of its ideology, because I still believe, Mr. Chairman, that democracy can handle it.
I was a brand new KGB officer, given my first intelligence assignment. A certain actor and union leader.
Dutch, there's a purpose for your life.
You can run from a bully for so long, but after a while, you're gonna have to stand up to him.
It's my boy!
There's about to be another war right here in Hollywood. The commies on one side, the mob on the other. And you're right in the middle, son.
If you put as much work into your career as you do making your speeches, you'd have an Oscar by now.
Hello, I'm Nancy Davis.
Hello, Nancy Davis. I'm Ron Reagan.
I'm curious, Ron.
What would you say is the issue of our time?
No question about it. Communism and the Soviet Union.
Get in the game. Run for office.
It's you!
I'm running for governor, and I would like your vote.
I've forgotten your name.
Do his initials help, or R?
Honey, Roy Rogers is here! And he's running for governor!
Ronnie, remember when we met? You told me that you wanted to make a difference in this world. You know what you have to do.
Governor Reagan again, typically, is against such a proposal.
There you go again.
But he was not afraid to take us on.
There's nothing a retired governor can do about the Soviets. But a president, now he can do a thing or two.
Welcome to your life.
I was a lifeguard on a river.
There's no turning back.
And I learned how to read the currents. Not just the ones on the surface, but also the ones deep underneath the water. I am about to start the biggest war of this century, and I'm not gonna fire a single shot.
You're gonna blow up 8 years of diplomacy.
Well, if you think that got their undies in a wad, you just wait.
What did the president know, and when did he know it?
What would you have me do?
I want you to fight!
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Wants to rule the world.
Hey, Dennis, welcome. How you doing?
Excellent.
Hey, the last time I met up with you, we did this on Music Row. You had just come out with your album.
Right. Yeah, just my record, Fallen, a gospel record for sinners.
Yeah.
It was just out at that time. And so great to be back.
Hey, but you're not on Music Row today. Where are you?
I'm at the Reagan Ranch, the Western White House, from 1981 to 1989. You're doing a promotion for Reagan, and it's great to revisit here. We shot here as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, since you did the movie Reagan, what did you do, move into the ranch?
Yeah, it's one of those little perks. Read the contract.
This really is, first of all, let me tell you, I saw the movie last night once again. I saw it a year ago. Mark had given me a copy of it, and there was still so much to be done.
Yeah.
And I know this took forever because you had COVID to work around, then you had the actors strike. This movie's been going on for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, it has. Actually, Mark has had the script since 2009.
Wow.
And there was a lot before. For one thing, approval from the family, financing was a lot, and getting it just right, and then shooting it. We had COVID shut us down. One of the crew members got COVID like 2 weeks in, so we shut down for a month. And then this was in Oklahoma, where we shot it. And then the assassination attempt scene in the hospital, just about all of us got COVID one night because we had like 50 extras, and it was a very closed space in this clinic, overnight. And there was no way out of it. So
what I love about the film, it really just takes you on a cinematic journey through his life. But this is not a film about so much about politics. It's a film about falling and getting back up time and time again. And it's a film that really resonated in so many ways. For people that, first of all, see the title. And so, that ain't me. I'm on the other side. Forget this. I'm not going to ever see anything with a Republican or with an R next to it. What would you say to those folks?
Well, the film, we tried really our best to not make it political, to favor either party. And I would have people remember that Reagan was a Democrat for the first half of his life as well. And, he was there were a lot of Reagan Democrats back that elected him, especially the second time. And it's the story of a man, is what it is. It's not a story of ideology at all. It's the story of a man, a mortal man, but a great man. And you're so right when you say that it's about, overcoming failures, overcoming your insecurities, overcoming a lot of obstacles in life. What a time in life it was back then. I know we're living in extraordinary times right now. But this was an era where we felt 90% of the people felt like there was going to be a nuclear war within a couple of years. And I think, believed that it was really because of Reagan, along with Lech Walesa and the Pope and Margaret Thatcher, that pulled us back from that brink and won the Cold War.
Did you have to do that stuff in school like I had to do? Did you have nuclear drills where you had to get under the desk?
Stop, drop, and roll, whatever that. Yeah, we got under the desk, and you never knew when it was coming, and it was just a little reminder, like as if that was going to work. I lived in Houston, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and we got kept home from school. It was a very real thing, and it just became more and more of a dangerous world from that time of the Cuban Missile Crisis till the end of the Cold War.
Now, I think I read someplace that when you were making a decision on this film, your mom at the time, who I think was 91 or something, she said, "You absolutely have to do this film." Your mom and dad, I think, were big fans of Reagan.
Yeah, they were.
And you grew up as a kid, and you did I read that you watched Reagan, a 64 speech with your dad?
Well, we heard it on the radio. We were on our way down to Galveston, and my dad was like pounding the dashboard, going, "You tell him, Ronnie." So, but I remember Reagan also on Death Valley days selling Baraxo soap. He'd be the narrator and the host for the stories, the real stories of the Old West, and the GE Theater. That was when Reagan was his career in movies was really on the way down in decline. And one of the things that I really admire about him, we were talking about picking yourself up. I don't think he ever really reached that place that he wanted to be as an actor. Being an actor myself, and I could relate with that. And his, he was kind of relegated to being in B movies by Jack Warner, I think, and John Wayne already had that spot in a sense. And Reagan's career was declining. He was married to Jane Wyman, and his career is going down. And she won an Oscar, while they were married as well. And that's what kind of compelled him to get in to being representing the union. He was vice president of the Screen Actors Guild and then president of the Screen Actors Guild, and that was his entry into politics for real, and it came off of a failure. Really, it's, kind of like finding God's purpose for us is a windy road that we doesn't go according to our script. Not very often.
I have to tell you, I was probably 5 minutes into your performance in the movie, and I literally forgot that I was watching Dennis Quaid.
Hey,
I mean, you nailed the mannerisms, you nailed the voice. Ronald Reagan was probably my favorite president. I was out in Hollywood in those years, and I just remember it so well, and I remember so much about his presidency. So it's so iconic. How in the world when you take on a role like this of such an iconic character, right?
Well,
how do you? Obviously, you study these things. You study mannerisms, study the voice, but you must have been terrified to take this role.
That was that shiver of fear that went up my spine about when I was offered it. And he was my favorite president too. And also, I didn't want to do a love letter or an impersonation of him. And it was lucky that I had a year, which turned into 2 years before we started shooting. And so I went to YouTube for all the physical things. There's great stuff on YouTube. I mean, every moment that's in the film is just about on YouTube. And, for the voice and the difference in the voice from the age and, his mannerisms, I kind of found, which I never knew, that he had a crooked smile, that had to do with some kind of nerve damage of an injury, going back. And, but I still, you can't get away from yourself as an actor. It's still me playing him. And that's kind of what acting is. It's an interpretation. And I feel a responsibility I played so many real people, from Doc Holliday to Gordo Cooper, the astronaut, to, Jimmy Morris, the pitcher and the rookie. And I feel a responsibility to them to do the role from their point of view.
So how did you, as far as the voice is concerned, there was the early Reagan, there was the after Reagan, and then there was the Reagan that we really came to love as president at much older age. What did you do to get those that span of voice ages down? How did you do that?
Well, I just lived with it. I would just be around the house like, could I have some breakfast, please? And I'm sorry, could you leave the package by the door? I just basically talked that way for a couple of years, until my family couldn't take it anymore. And that's just to get it to the point where I wasn't trying to find it, where I could learn it and then I could forget it, and really focus on what the scene was about and the emotions and all that. There was which was the toughest part, were really the personality thing, getting inside somebody. Reagan, talking to people who knew him and knew him well, including Nancy, said there was a very kind of private, impenetrable space there that Reagan had. This is the great communicator. But there was this kind of like wall that was put up that you get in, and then you couldn't go past sometimes, and I'm sure Nancy knew him better than anybody else. And so what was that? That was a big question for me, because I feel like that was the key to him.
You bring up Nancy, and Penelope Ann Miller plays Nancy.
Yeah, she's amazing.
You guys just had magic. I mean, you captured it. You captured that relationship, and we've always heard these stories about how she was really running the White House,
right?
Cetera. I'm sorry, I think we've just gone through that, so I don't remember.
Yeah, I have one thing to say: fake news.
But the really cool thing about this movie is that I really felt like it was every bit as much a love story as it was a story about Reagan.
It's central to the movie, their love story, and it was quite a love story. He was writing her love notes their entire marriage, even when he was in the hospital after, with the assassination attempt. He was writing her love notes. Yeah, he never missed a day, really, that he could. And Penelope Ann Miller is so incredible. There would not have been a President Ronald Reagan if it wasn't for Nancy. I think really drew strength from one another, and they were, a very intimate council that totally entrusted each other. And all those stories of her kind of pulling the strings and all that, it's that wasn't going for sure. But it's they're a great example of a marriage.
Was there anything about that relationship that you have brought to your own?
My love story is one that came late to me in life, really. I don't know why God planned it that way, but he did. And it took me, I think it took me a while to be worked on by the Lord for me to be ready for that. You got to be ready for a relationship like that. I've been married 4 times. I will, that's something I'm not proud of, but I don't want to put any of the blame on any of the other people that I was in a relationship with. It comes down to, we have patterns, and and I think I needed to kind of do some deepening, and when I met Laura, I was really ready, and she was too, I think, and really had the greatest relationship that I could possibly imagine. So in a way like that, it is a little bit like Ron and Nancy.
Yeah. Hey, I'm totally right there with you. I'm 65 going on 66, and I finally got it right. It took me 3 times, and so I just got it right. What, a year ago, 2 years ago?
Yeah. So you've tried. Well, she and I've been together 5 years now, and it's never been in a place like this that what I have with her. And God is in our relationship. That's the really big deal. That's a big, big difference. And I mean, truly in the relationship.
Yeah, it makes all the difference in the world, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And when you look back and you realize that, you say, well, why didn't I listen from the start?
Yeah. Because first you got to open your ears. You got to do it your way. I had to do it my way, time and time and time again. So it's
absolutely. So let's talk about President Reagan and why he had such an incredible way of communication. How he was able to win over the media. First of all, let's just talk about one of the scenes in the movie, and I've told this for years. I said, why can't we get back to that time where you could be foes during the day, and come 6 o'clock, he would sit down with Tip O'Neill and they would have a cocktail or have a beer.
Yeah, just a couple hours having a beer. Well, first off, back then we had liberal Republicans, we had conservative Democrats, and so it wasn't so black and white as it is now. But that's not really an excuse in a way. I want to see us get back there too. And it almost seems impossible these days because it is so black and white. But it's been that way before in this country. And it's come around. And I have faith in the American people that we will get there. And last time I can remember it really being this way was, I guess, in the 60s, early 70s. I think Watergate really put a schism in there as well. And it was Reagan who came back and unified the country. He was such a great communicator. He opened with a joke. In his speeches, whenever he spoke, He would open with a joke, and it put people either off balance or, everybody laughing together. In a theater, like in a theater when you're watching a movie, it's kind of a communal experience of fellowship, and it puts people at ease. I think he did the same thing like with Gorbachev, and when he met them, they're really taken by him, and he was by doing that, he was able to have people really listen to what he was saying.
Now I know where Joel Osteen gets it. He always opened with a joke too.
Yeah, well, Reagan, I think, got it from Jack Benny.
So, now I'm going to steal that. And everyone after this, I'm going to open with a joke. So Denise, you can write me good material. As a man of faith, how did Reagan inspire you?
His principles. He was a man like all of us. We're all flawed or whatever, and he was a person of principles that I think were instilled in him from a very early age. He was part of that, what we call the greatest generation, who had been through the Great Depression, World War II, and you talk about selfless service, during those times. And he had principles by which he governed by, not just the issues of the day blown by the wind one way or another to be popular. And a lot of things that he did in his presidency at the time that he made those decisions were very unpopular. But in the long run, turned out to be the right thing. Because if you have principles, then it really kind of doesn't matter which party you're with if you govern based on principles.
You've been in all these inspiring movies. And all of them seem to have an element of faith. You're like Mr. Inspiration now. I mean, movie after movie after movie. And I love the one, by the way, you did for Roma Downing, the airplane thing.
Winging a Prayer.
Yeah, and The Hill. Just all of these amazing movies. Why does there
imagine?
I can only, of course.
Yeah.
Why is there such a hunger, other than the fact you're in them? Why is there such a hunger for these films?
Well, faith hasn't been represented in so long in film. In fact, it was something that was like intentionally left out. And maybe it's because, you can't be part of the cool club or whatever if you have that in there. Faith movies, I became aware of, I say 15 years ago, and I have to admit it, the first attempts weren't very good a lot of the time. And then I remember a movie, The Shack, that came along, and that really kind of turned everything on its head, I think. And I can only imagine, was offered that. And I didn't do it because it was a faith movie. I did it because it was really good. And it had that element in there. And if you have that element in there, faith, or that relationship with God, that it deepens. That's who we are as people. We're spiritual beings. It's at the very heart of who we are. It just deepens the part, and it's something that everyone can relate to. And I think people want to see great stories like that inspired, just like your show, that encourage you, that inspire you. We all need part of fellowship. Going to see a movie is fellowship. Two or more are gathered, and it's I think we need them now more than ever. And so I just when I do a film, and I do some that are not, quote, faith movies, they have some kind of element in there. The Long Game, the film that we just did, this first movie that our company made, which is a really kind of underdog true story. And people love true stories. I mean, I love true stories because they're stranger than fiction, really. True stories that, if it was fiction, you wouldn't believe it. And, but I base my choices on the script, on the story, whether I want to go see that movie or not, how it hits me. When I read a script, it's the first and only time that I will be an audience member with that experience, or a first-time experience with that story.
Now, you pretty much live in Nashville now, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen this wave of people move to Nashville. I mean, I moved here from L.A. back from Ventura County, actually, back in. Oh, by the way, I know the Reagan Ranch is near Santa Barbara, right?
Right. It's north of.
And I've been to the library many times because I live literally 2 miles from there.
Oh, really?
And
yeah.
I took my daughter when they had when they flew his body there on the big plane, and then they took him. They had all the cars go to the Reagan Library from the plane, and everybody's lined up on the street. I was one of those people with my little daughter on my shoulder.
That's fantastic.
But that we both kind of left that world, so to speak.
I mean, you just encapsulated the effect Reagan had on the American people right there. It was somebody that we wanted to teach our kids about, that this is a life here that was well lived. This is a strong leader. Reagan was, in a sense, everybody's dad, especially for our generation, and that is a double-edged sword, as far as the relationship you had with your dad, either the good dad or the bad dad or whatever, you were rebellious to your dad, in a sense, you know what I mean? And I guess you were either the prodigal son or the son who stayed home and worked on the ranch. But it's amazing how those feelings have stayed with people, even today. They have very strong feelings for Reagan, whether you loved him or, some people hated him. In a sense, they called him a warmonger, all that stuff. That's where all, kind of like the same stuff they do today. It was got to get us into a war. But, what he did is it took a strong, cold warrior like himself to be able to win the Cold War, because he would stand up to these Soviets. We appeased them for so many decades, and that didn't work. And it took somebody like him to do it.
So the Nashville thing. The reason I bring that up is because I think we all want a little bit to return to the land that we thought we were living in.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And how paint the picture for me of from your perspective of the land that you want to live in and the land that you want your kids to live in.
Well, that would be a land that was where common sense was respected and understood what common sense actually was. I mean, start there and pretty much dominoes out. But a land where, my kids actually can have a better life than I did. They pass that on. And a a land where, as Rodney King said, we all get along. And we can differ, but we don't settle. We compromise. We find a way through. It's all right there in the Constitution. If the Constitution has it all, and it's a great guide. And along with the Constitution and God's Word, I think would be a much easier life.
And what about this film, do you think? What do you want people to take away from this film, other than a couple of hours of being entertained?
Well, I do want them to be entertained. That's what movies are for. They're not about going to school. I don't want people to feel like they're in a classroom, because this movie is not that. You might learn something, but it's inspiring. We go to the movies not to see things. We go there to feel things. And you will feel better walking out than you did walking in. That's for sure. And it'll make you think about your own life. It will.
Well, I will tell you something. I'm not giving away anything, because we know how the story ends. But that last scene, I'm going through some things right now in my own family with my dad, who was a Reagan kind of figure to me.
Yeah.
And he's in his mid 80s, and there are a lot of we're dealing with some things, and that scene that takes place on the at the Reagan Ranch, where he rides off into the sunset, and he does his letter to America, informing everybody that he has Alzheimer's. It's been
right.
Kind of paint that picture for us, because anybody who's going through this, and there's so many people who are dealing with dementia,
it's an epidemic now.
Yeah,
it's either that or no one ever talked about it before, and it was some of those things you didn't talk about back then, and that was, Ronald Reagan. What an act of courage, number one, and how thoughtful for him to write that letter to the American people. And he wrote it right after he got diagnosed. And he knew that come a couple of years from now, I'm not going to be able to write this letter. I'm not even going to remember why I was, would be writing this letter. It's like having your whole life taken away from you. Your memory, and then your family as well. So very courageous for him to write about it. And that was a real, I'd say, gift to the American people for him to do that, because it inspired others, I think, and this, I would love to dedicate this movie to, in fact, to that legacy that Nancy carried on as well, to defeating Alzheimer's. And as Reagan said, it can be done. In our lifetime.
Well, Dennis, it's been great catching up with you, my friend. We have so much respect for you and your work, and we'll have to catch up here in Nashville. But we wish you much success with Reagan, the movie, and man, keep the faith. You're doing great.
You too, David. I really enjoyed talking with you today, and thanks for having me on the show. And look forward to co-hosting. And but it's been great. Thank you. God bless.
And thanks again, Dennis. Always a pleasure to catch up with you. Again, the movie is Reagan, and it's in theaters on August the 30th. So head on over to Reagan.movie to get your tickets and to find showtimes in your area. This has been CIA, Contagious Influencers of America, from the producers of the #1 syndicated faith-based show in all of America, Keep the Faith. Do rate and review us. Do give us 5 stars. That would be great if you would do that. You can check out all of our episodes at contagiousInfluencers.com. And, of course, our radio show website, where you're going to find all kinds of goodies, and I mean all kinds of goodies, is at KeepTheFaith.com. So certainly do check that out. Until next time, David Sams, and I'm asking you to do something for me, will you? Go out there and live that life in living color, because it sure is a heck of a lot more interesting than living it in black and white. I'll see you next time.